is he? Where is he?
I've got one and possibly two shooters.
How can we help?
Do you have tactically trained EMS?
We have breaking news of a shooting on the Appomattox University campus.
Someone opened fire on students taking final exams.
This is an active investigation.
We're going to need all the help we can get.
We've got students calling from inside the building.
Our deepest sympathies go out to the families and loved ones who are dealing with this tragedy.
Mom, I'll see you soon. I love you.
Just after midnight on July 20th, 2012, a lone gunman enters the Century 16 Theater in suburban Aurora, Colorado.
Hello? Help! What do you need? I'm at the Century 16 Theater. Please help! We have police inside of there. Are you injured? Oh my God, there's bodies everywhere. Please help! They threw a smoke grenade, and then they started shooting.
Police arrived on the scene 90 seconds after the first 911 call.
Team 6, we got another person outside shot in the leg, a female. I got people running out of the theater that are shot. Get us some damn gas masks for Theater 9. We can't get in it.
It was quite chaotic. There was a lot of people outside in the parking lot. The movie was still playing. The fire alarms were going off. Cell phones were already starting to go off inside the theater.
They got a suspect. Yes, we got rifles, gas masks. Okay, hold that position, hold your suspect.
Within minutes, the suspect is in custody, and attention turns to the victims.
16, I got 7 down in Theater 9. 16, I need a rescue in here. I have 3 parties shot over here. We've got 2 victims on the east side, north side of the theater. I need an ambulance here quick. Here, where are my ambulances at?
The most that was ever aired on the radio to our fire units was 4 victims. We arrived to people running out of a theater covered in blood.
Oh my God.
We had police officers coming to us asking for help, asking to get this patient out of there, even asking for our breathing apparatus because they wanted to go into the theater where tear gas was being sprayed.
I need officers on the east side to block it.
Incident command to start was me standing on the curb in front of the theater with my radio and a cell phone. The other lieutenant would come and check in with me periodically, and then he would go back into the building to check on stuff. That night, the fire has their channel, we have our channel, so communications is having to relay everything. I did ask for fire command to meet me there. That did not happen for some time.
We need rescue inside the auditorium, multiple victims. We need to start putting them in cars and shuttle them out to that west end. I got a whole bunch of people shot out here, no rescue.
These people were going to die soon if we didn't do something.
Yes, load them up, get them in cars, get them out of here.
With fire overwhelmed with walking wounded, the police decide to break protocol and self-transport.
It's an extraordinary circumstance. Policy can't cover all of that.
12 people died that night, but the death toll would have been higher without the officers' decision to transport. Of the 70 that were wounded, 17 were critical. 15 of those victims arrived at the hospitals in police cars.
Every person that had survivable injuries on that scene survived.
But the shooter planned for even more victims at his Paris Street apartment.
He had set it up as a booby trap, hoping for first responders to get there, trigger an explosion there, draw the remaining officers to his apartment, and then he could do his acts at the theater. We had a meeting with bomb teams and the fire leadership and myself. I said, we're not gonna let this bastard win. He's not gonna get the building. And those guys came back in the morning, and they spent 12 to 14 hours, very slowly, very carefully, taking that apart. All of our training should include that there might be a secondary device. We checked all the cars. It really got us thinking, just how far out do we need to go to check for stuff?
Even though I have the most respect for the folks that were in the theater that night, and obviously our 12 murder victims, the victimization reaches far beyond that. My wife was a new patrol sergeant. She was working swing shift that night, so her jacket, her hat, her police bag, they were all bloody. We drove home together that morning to the day that I gave that vehicle up. Every time she got into that car, she would look at me and say, "This car smells like blood."
One of our officers, experienced officer, been on a long time, he walked up to me and he goes, "LT, I think I had to carry a little girl out of the theater. I think she's dead." And you could tell he was hurting inside.
You know, I know from working with 9/11, there were people who were in shock for 3 or 4 years. It takes 4 to 8 years for most people just to return to some stabilization after a terrorism event or some other mass casualty.
We have several officers that we've been watching in the organization. We do know that there's some alcoholism involved. We've had some marital problems. Our worst fears are that we'll have some suicidal incidents.
We need to relieve those crews after a traumatic incident. Unfortunately for us, the shooter's apartment happened so quickly after we didn't have time to do that, and it was kind of like an emergency that never ended.
Then the next day, the president decided he wanted to represent the country, come here. So then we ended up with a presidential detail as well.
My chief offers to allow the SWAT team to opt out of that. I said, absolutely not. This is our city. Aurora SWAT will take care of this. As a leader, I'm not sure that was a great decision other than the pride involved.
I think the guys wanted to come back. They felt a need to come back. And they're good officers. They want to come back and do their duty.
A suggestion would be maybe to let these people come back, but not put them in some of the enforcement roles we wanted them to be in. Or maybe to marry them up with an officer that wasn't involved so that now they have somebody that can kind of watch over them, make sure they're doing okay emotionally.
I think a lot of our first responders really feel more comfortable talking to people who are doing the job. We actually created our own peer support team from the ground up. I think the single biggest lesson learned is to take care of your people, understanding that they've just seen something that they'll never forget.